Hey everyone, and welcome back to the English Coffee Talk Show. I'm Eva.
And I'm James. We're so excited you're joining us today for another fun episode where we help you learn English through casual, everyday conversations.
Right, and speaking of conversations, James, before we dive into today's main topic, I have to tell you about the most bizarre coffee flavor I tried this morning.
Oh no, what did you do now?
Okay, so you know how I'm always trying those weird seasonal flavors at that little cafe down the street? Well, today they had something called Pickle and Dill Latte.
No way. Pickle and coffee? Eva, that sounds absolutely terrible.
I know. But you know me, I can't resist trying something weird. And honestly, it was surprisingly not awful. Like, it tasted like drinking a very confused sandwich.
A confused sandwich. That's probably the best description I've ever heard for a food disaster. Did you actually finish it?
I did. I mean, I paid $6 for it, so I wasn't about to waste it. But I definitely won't be ordering it again. What about you? Any food adventures lately?
Actually, yeah. I tried making homemade pizza last weekend and it was a complete disaster. The dough stuck to everything except the pan where it was supposed to be.
Oh no, that sounds like my first attempt at bread making. Did you end up ordering takeout?
Absolutely. Sometimes you just have to admit defeat and call for backup. Speaking of which, our listeners probably want us to move on to today's main topic before we spend the whole episode talking about food fails.
You're absolutely right. Today, we're talking about sports, which is actually perfect timing since we're right in the middle of football season here in the U.S., and I know a lot of our international listeners are curious about American sports culture.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how much sports language we use in everyday English conversation, even when we're not talking about sports at all.
Oh, that's so true. Like, we say things like drop the ball all the time, and most people aren't even thinking about actual sports when they use it.
Right, so let's start with that one. Drop the ball. This comes from sports where, obviously, you're supposed to catch and hold on to the ball, but in everyday English, it means to make a mistake or fail to do something you were supposed to do.
Exactly. Like, you might say, I really dropped the ball on that work project, or, sorry, I dropped the ball and forgot to pick up groceries. It's not about sports at all. It's just about messing something up.
Perfect example. And here's another one that's super common in business conversations. Knock it out of the park. This one comes from baseball.
Oh, yeah, like hitting a home run, when you hit the ball so hard and so far that it goes completely out of the baseball park.
Exactly. So in everyday conversation, knock it out of the park means to do something extremely well, to exceed expectations. Like Sarah really knocked it out of the park with her presentation yesterday.
Or the new restaurant knocked it out of the park with their dessert menu. It's basically saying they did an amazing job.
Perfect. Now, here's one that comes up a lot in business conversations. Touch base. This actually comes from baseball too. The bases are those white squares that players have to run to and touch.
Oh, yeah. But in everyday English, touch base just means to contact someone briefly or check in with them. Like, let's touch base next week about the project, or I need to touch base with my mom about Thanksgiving plans.
Perfect. It's a really common way to say you want to have a quick conversation or update with someone. You hear it in offices all the time.
Totally. And here's one more that I love. Move the goalposts. This comes from soccer or football, when you literally move where the goal is.
Right, which would make the game completely unfair. So in everyday English, moving the goalposts means changing the rules or requirements after something has already started, usually in an unfair way.
Exactly. Like if your boss says, just finish this report by Friday and you can leave early. But then on Friday they say, actually, I need 3 more charts added to it. That's moving the goalposts.
That would be so frustrating. Yeah, it's basically changing the deal after you've already agreed to it. Super annoying.
So true. Now, James, I know you have a really funny sports story to share with our listeners. Want to tell them about your adventure with, what was it, rock climbing?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so this happened about 2 months ago. My friend Jake had been trying to get me to go rock climbing for literally years, and I kept saying no because, honestly, I'm terrified of heights.
Uh-oh, this sounds like it's going to be good.
Right? So finally, Jake wears me down and I agree to try indoor rock climbing at this gym downtown. I figured, how hard could it be? It's indoors, there are safety ropes, what's the worst that could happen?
Famous last words. What happened?
Well, first of all, I completely underestimated how much upper body strength you need for rock climbing. I work out regularly, but apparently running and doing some weights at the gym does not prepare you for pulling your entire body weight up a wall using just your fingertips.
Oh no. Yeah, I've heard rock climbing uses muscles you didn't even know you had.
Exactly. So I'm struggling up this beginner wall, and I mean beginner, like the easiest route they have. And I'm maybe 6 feet off the ground when my arms just completely give out. I'm hanging there like a very sad, very out of shape spider.
Oh my gosh, were you stuck?
Well, that's where it gets worse. Jake is supposed to be belaying me. That means he's holding the safety rope from the ground to catch me if I fall. But Jake, being Jake, gets distracted by this group of really experienced climbers doing these incredible moves on the advanced wall.
No, he wasn't paying attention?
Nope. So I'm hanging there, my arms are burning, and I'm trying to call down to him like, Jake, I need to come down now. But he's completely mesmerized watching these people who are basically flying up the walls like Spider-Man.
This is terrible. What did you do?
Well, I try to reach for the next hole to pull myself up, but my hands are so sweaty and tired that I completely lose my grip. And here's the thing about indoor climbing safety ropes. They're designed to catch you when you fall, but there's always a little bit of slack in the system.
Oh no, so you fell?
I fell, and because Jake wasn't paying attention and there was slack in the rope, I dropped about 8 feet before the rope finally caught me. But here's the really embarrassing part. I was so startled by the fall that I let out this incredibly loud, high-pitched scream.
Oh my gosh, did everyone turn around and look?
Everyone, the entire gym just stopped what they were doing and stared at me as I'm swinging back and forth on this rope, probably looking like I'm about to cry. And the worst part, one of the staff members comes running over asking if I'm hurt, and I'm trying to play it cool like, oh no, I'm fine, just getting the hang of it.
You were trying to save face. I totally get that. Did you try to climb again?
Well, Jake finally realized what happened and he's mortified, apologizing like crazy. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should just call it a day. But then this little kid, couldn't have been more than 10 years old, comes over and says, hey, want me to show you a better way to grip the holds?
A 10-year-old? That must have been both helpful and humbling at the same time.
Exactly. So this kid, his name was Tyler, shows me this technique for conserving energy and using your legs more than your arms. And you know what? It actually worked. I managed to make it about 15 feet up the wall before my legs turned to jelly and I had to come down again.
That's progress, though. Did you feel proud of yourself?
I actually did. But then came the real challenge, getting down from the wall. Tyler tried to explain this technique called rappelling, where you basically walk backwards down the wall while controlling your descent with the rope.
Oh no, this sounds like it's going to be another disaster.
You know me too well. So I'm trying to rappel down like Tyler showed me, but I'm gripping the rope way too tightly because I'm terrified. Instead of a nice controlled descent, I'm basically doing this weird hopping motion down the wall, bouncing off like a very uncoordinated kangaroo.
An uncoordinated kangaroo? I'm dying. Were people watching again?
Oh yeah, I had quite the audience by this point. But you know what? By the end of the session, I was actually starting to get the hang of it. Tyler convinced me to try one more route, and I made it all the way to the top of the beginner wall.
That's amazing. So did you get hooked on rock climbing after that?
Well, let's just say I have a new appreciation for rock climbers, but I think I'll stick to sports where my feet stay firmly on the ground. Though I did go back one more time just to prove to myself that I could do it without completely embarrassing myself.
That's the spirit. Speaking of sports experiences, I have to share my story about going to a football match in Manchester when I was studying abroad in England. It was absolutely insane.
Oh, this is going to be good. I've heard the atmosphere at English football matches is incredible.
Incredible is definitely one word for it. So this was my first semester abroad, and I was still getting used to everything being different. The money, the accents, even the way people walk. My flatmate, Sarah, was this huge Manchester United fan, and she somehow managed to get tickets to a match against Liverpool.
Oh, wow. Manchester United versus Liverpool? That's like one of the biggest rivalries in English football.
Exactly. But I had no idea how serious this rivalry was. I thought it would be like going to a baseball game back home. Buy some popcorn, cheer for your team, have a nice time. I was so naive.
Oh no, what happened?
Well, first of all, Sarah insists we have to wear the proper colors, red for Manchester United. She lends me this vintage United jersey that belonged to her dad, and she's explaining all these unwritten rules about what you can and can't do at the match.
What kind of rules?
Things like never, ever applaud the other team, even if they make an amazing play. Don't wear anything blue, that's Manchester City's color, the other Manchester team. And most importantly, she says, never stop singing the team songs, even if you don't know the words.
Wait, you have to sing? Like the whole game?
Basically. So we get to Old Trafford, that's the stadium, and I'm immediately overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. We're talking 75,000 people, all wearing red, and the energy is just electric. Everyone's singing these songs I've never heard before, and there are vendors selling meat pies and tea instead of hot dogs and beer.
That sounds amazing. How was the actual game?
Well, that's where things got really intense. The game starts, and literally from the first second, every single person around me is on their feet screaming. Not just cheering, I mean full-throated, passionate screaming about every single thing that happens on the field.
That's so different from American sports. Were you able to keep up?
I was trying, but about 20 minutes into the game, Liverpool scores the first goal. And Eva, I have never experienced silence like that in my life. 75,000 people just went completely, absolutely silent for about 5 seconds. It was eerie.
Wow, that must have been surreal.
It was. And then, just as suddenly, everyone started singing even louder than before. Sarah grabs my arm and shouts, "This is when we show our support," and launches into the song about how United will never give up. I'm trying to mumble along, but I have no idea what the words are.
Did anyone notice you didn't know the songs?
Well, that's where it gets funny. This elderly gentleman sitting next to me, he must have been in his 70s, notices I'm struggling with the lyrics, so he leans over and starts teaching me the words to the songs during the game.
That's so sweet. What was he like?
His name was Frank, and he'd been going to United matches for over 50 years. He had this thick Manchester accent that I could barely understand, but he was so patient, writing down song lyrics on his program and explaining what they meant. Meanwhile, the game is getting more and more intense.
How did the game end up?
Oh my gosh. So in the 89th minute, that's like the very end of the game, Manchester United scores to tie it up. I have never, ever experienced anything like what happened next. The entire stadium just erupted. People were crying, hugging complete strangers, jumping up and down.
That sounds incredible. Were you caught up in the emotion too?
I was completely swept away. Frank grabbed me and Sarah in this huge bear hug, and we're all jumping around, singing at the top of our lungs. I felt like I understood something about English culture that I'd never gotten before. This isn't just entertainment. It's like a religious experience for these people.
That's such a perfect way to describe it. Did you become a football fan after that?
I did. I started following Manchester United for the rest of my time in England. Frank even invited me to watch a few more matches with his family. It was like being adopted into this passionate, crazy football family. I'll never forget that experience.
What an amazing story. That really captures how sports can bring people together and create these incredible shared experiences.
Exactly. And it's a perfect example of how sports culture is so different around the world, but the emotions and the community feeling are universal.
Absolutely. Well, I think we should probably wrap up today's episode. Let's do a quick recap of those sports idioms we talked about for our listeners.
Perfect. So we covered drop the ball, which means to make a mistake or fail at something you were supposed to do.
Knock it out of the park, meaning to do something extremely well or exceed expectations.
Level playing field, a fair situation where everyone has the same advantages and disadvantages.
Touch base, to contact someone briefly or check in with them.
And move the goalposts, changing the rules or requirements unfairly after something has already started.
These are all super useful expressions that you'll hear in everyday English conversations, so definitely practice using them.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe to the English Coffee Talk Show wherever you get your podcasts. We release new episodes every week with different topics to help you improve your conversational English.
Also, if you could leave us a review and rating, that would be absolutely amazing. It really helps other English learners find our show. And make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. Keep practicing your English, and we'll see you next week for another casual conversation on the English Coffee Talk Show.
Until next time, keep talking and keep learning. Bye, everyone.